to run, and they should have won that game.
Yeah, Georgia didn't deserve it.
You know, but it's never done to the very end. So
and
they should have won that game. Yep.
I think we're hearing ourselves.
Yeah, Georgia didn't deserve it.
Yep.
So somebody's got the audio on the YouTube.
Very end. So they should have won that game. Yep.
I think we're hearing ourselves. Yeah, Georgia didn't deserve it.
Yep.
So somebody's got the audio on the
to the very end. So they should have won that game.
We're in a great loop.
Yes.
Sorry, I think that was me. Just I had the YouTube just kicked on. So
I will just start by saying I'm already thrilled that I can see everybody's picture now on my screen at one time.
Awesome.
Yeah, I actually have to change my view here. Speaking of pictures, look at that Sean Garland picture.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Sorry, I'm eating dinner, so I was going to turn my camera off.
That's okay. We were commenting about the need for updated pictures for some members of council.
Oh, I need mine replaced. Absolutely. It looks like I'm high on helium or something. And it's Kim's fault and Tim's fault because they picked it.
They have a comedy core to their heart.
Well, they do. Oh yeah, I've gotten razzed about that a few times. I'm gonna pick Tim's picture.
It's a good look for you.
Oh, I'm gonna pick your picture this next time. Definitely.
You can pick the mayor's new picture.
Oh, I'll take it. I'll take his picture.
Yeah. Right.
Who, where is Kim here? I don't see Kim.
I don't see Kim yet. She's the only one that I believe is missing.
Oh, maybe that's her.
Councillor Browse, you have an interesting background. Where is that?
I think it's Alaska. I'm really not sure.
All right. Right on time. Kim has joined us. Sylvia, are you ready? A nod. We're all ready. All right, let's start our city council work session for January 5th, 2021, new year. So we have two topics for our work session. First is Parks Master Plan Review. Kristen and Joe.
Kristen, you want to just start?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So we have an updated Parks Master Plan for discussion tonight. Everyone should have received a copy. I'm hoping you've had a chance to take a look at it. But Lauren is here and is going to just do a brief PowerPoint presentation to highlight the changes from the last time you saw the document. So I'll just turn it over to Lauren. It looks like she's putting her screen up there right now.
Yes. How is it? Is it in presentation mode?
It's in presentation mode.
Are you only seeing one slide?
No.
Or are you seeing the back of the house? Okay,
there we go.
Let me change one thing. How's that? Great. Well, thanks for having me back here to kick off your first work session of the new year. If you've had a chance to page through the updated document, you'll know that, over the fall, in talking to the PRAB a few times, the Planning Commission, and then also all of you. We got some really good feedback that, overall refined and tightened up the document, didn't create major changes in direction. And so I just want to highlight a few of the changes since you last saw this back in October. Overall, one of the key changes were a number of revisions that reflect the change in the school district agreement. And so those occur throughout the document to reflect the new state of things. There's updated maps to incorporate GIS changes, parcels, names, things like that. One of the key things that came out of all of those review meetings was to really emphasize trails-related actions and recommendations, especially in chapters 3 and 4, including calling out the grade-separated crossings of Highway 99W as a priority. Just to kind of clean things up, the replacement field house is moved to the new parks, trails, and facilities section in chapter 4 to keep it a little cleaner compared to the discussion of the existing facility. Also, based on your feedback, Festival Plaza is a new addition. It's a new recommendation that is on PRMP page 69. And so you discussed this at your last session. Developing the parcel you own downtown as a festival plaza that can be used also for parking when it's not used for events. That would be a green stormwater infrastructure facility, so it would look nice, it would function well, and it would meet your festival and parking needs. And the materials palette can be used to tie together the wonderful investments that you've made in your civic buildings and plazas. It'll need to have lighting and upgraded power for events, and should be designed to accommodate a couple different layouts, including a booth layout and a stage layout, so it can be flexible for different things. So that's a new project that's been added into the document and into the project list. A second add, also on that same page, is a specific recommendation around integration of public art. That was kind of inferred in some of the discussion, but this recommendation really pulls public art out to its own recommendation level. Talks about integrating art to express history and culture in the parks, facilities, public spaces, and rights of way, and that the Cultural Arts Commission and the Public Art Master Plan should be the guidance on how that public art is integrated. Within the executive summary, the project list is updated, and so what you see on the screen now is the first page of that primarily deals with the existing system. No changes on that page. The second page, the orange arrows are pointing out the line items that are shifted from the last time. So the Sherwood Center for the Arts, adding office space and backstage area, a cost for the YMCA. You know, there's a lot TBD about how those costs would be shared, but it is a facility you own that has a need that you've looked at before. Costs related to, assumptions related to the Sherwood West parkland acquisition and development.
Can I ask a quick question on that?
Sure.
Just a minor detail. In your previous slide, you talked about plural pedestrian crossings, which I assume you're including the underpass at Meineke. or at Cedar Creek? And is that on this list? I didn't see it on the list.
That is not specifically on this list. The pedestrian and bike bridge is one of the one of the challenges back when we were first developing these lists and deciding how to treat trails was how does this interact with the transportation system plan, and what's called out within that plan, and what's doubled here or called out differently. And so that's one that could be added if you thought that was a good add, but it is it's not on here now. The bridge was the one we focused on.
Well, just speaking for myself, I would prefer we have both in here, even though it's replicated in the transportation plan, because in reality, the from a trails point of view and from getting funding from Metro and other sources, that one probably lines up better because it connects to Cedar Creek Trail. So I think it would be good to have that plan. Unless
that would be an easy add.
That's just my voice. Welcome comments from others.
Yep, needs to be added. That'd be good.
Okay. There's a general trail network expansion, but that's really more for surface trails added. The Festival Plaza is also added, and as you already noticed, the ped and bike bridge is added. So, right next to that one, we can add the underpass as its own line item as well. And so that brings the project total, this vision list, up to just under 120 million. Adding the underpass will bump that up a little bit more. And then the other place that was updated was the action plan. And so there's some tweaks to the actions to reflect the projects as they've been updated and to sync up with some of the actions, but pretty minor tweaks there. And so where we're headed with this is back to the PRAB, through the Planning Commission for a hearing, and then back, hopefully, for your review and adoption. And so with that, I'll just stop with the presentation, and then we are hoping to hear any other changes or tweaks that you might like to see before this moves forward.
All right, who's got ideas, comments, questions? I like Tim's addition. Good to put the tunnel on there.
I appreciate having the art stuff separated out as well. Thank you for doing that.
I have a quick comment. I actually sent a whole list, not a whole list, just a few items over to Erica on yesterday. One of the things that I thought would be good is I noticed throughout the plan, we mentioned the Tonkin West Fork of the Ice Age Tonkin Trail. We mentioned that, but the Cedar Creek Trail, this more than $1 million trail that we are doing, in the heart of Sherwood, is not really called out, and it seems like that's going to be one of our, maybe when it's finished, one of our major trails in the downtown area, and maybe other trails will connect to it. I thought maybe we should reference it more clearly. And I know Jason has all kinds of information about that, and so we added that map from the TSP on page 34, which I think is very helpful, because that helps tie the trail system and what transportation is planning with what parks and recreation and what we're planning. I would just like to see the Cedar Creek Trail called out more. I think it's going to be a very unique project, like us being adjacent to the wildlife refuge. And I think over time we get the trail developed, and some of these little pockets of, and I've talked to Kristen about this, these little pockets of natural areas that are kind of back there that are hidden that we really can't get to. You know, not that we're going to develop those, but it'd be nice if we, you know, we could start with that trail and then maybe branch out. So some of those areas would stay pristine and natural, but would be more accessible to the public. So that's a thought I had.
Well, I think we'll find that once that's built, that there are areas that are not pristine and quasi-natural,
Right.
and we'll need to do some restoration type work back in there, get some invasive species
Yeah.
removed and other little
Pull out the
things.
shopping cart. The shopping cart's been there
Little
a few
things.
years. Yeah, little few things. Still, I mean, Mary, you must agree, it has great possibility, that area
Oh,
back there is so
right.
beautiful. Yeah.
Here. Great. Other things that you called out yesterday, Russell, in your review that you want to bring up?
Some of my other comments were about some of the maps, because I think that if you're going to, in my opinion, if you're going to include a map in a document, the map should be extremely understandable, readable. In a few seconds, people should look at that and realize immediately what is what. I just pointed out some things, you know, in the legend that don't necessarily map or match what's on the map. I see Lauren kind of shaking her head. And I know that Erica mentioned that I think she called, I forgot what she called it, something to do with GIS, and we don't own apparently all of that or whatever. So I don't know how much of it we can change, but I don't want to put a wedge when we get close to the end here. But anytime we can increase the visibility, readability, understandability, that's not a word, I know that, of a map, I think it makes it easier for the public to look at the map and reference it and go like, oh, I know where that is. I know what that is. I know where, I didn't know that went over there. But a couple of the maps, I think, you know, I think they could just always be improved, so.
And we passed, actually, thank you for writing those review comments down too. We passed them on. I forgot to mention that. We passed them on to our GIS person who's looking at, well, what do we have? What data can we get? But it's nice to have fresh eyes. You know, you start to be blind to things that you've looked at, you know, over and over again. So appreciate
that's
that.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much for that.
Other questions, comments of the draft? Wow, winner.
So Kristen, just to refresh everyone's memory, is this going back to planning when?
Erica's on the line, and I'm sure she knows the date that it's going to go to planning. Parks Board meets again on February 1st. So we just had our meeting last night. So no significant changes since they've last seen it, but we'll take it back to them one more time on February 1st. And then Erica, if you could.
And then we expect this to go back to the Planning Commission on February 9th. So a week after PRAB.
And then ultimately with council in late February, early March for adoption?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Anything else? Going once, going twice? Woohoo! All right. Thank you, Lauren. Thank you, Kristen.
Well, thank you, and Happy New Year, all.
You
Happy
too.
New Year to you too. Thank you. Next item on our agenda for the work session is tobacco retail licensing proposal. Joe?
Hi.
So let me introduce Gwen Ashcombe, who is the Tobacco Prevention Coordinator for Washington County, is on the line. She's going to do a brief presentation that I actually forwarded to council yesterday. This is an idea, and Gwen, please correct me if I'm wrong, that kind of started back pre-COVID. I remember having some conversations with Gwen, and I believe Mayor Mays heard a presentation at one of the Washington County mayor's meetings potentially about this idea. And then COVID happened. And I think now Gwen has kind of dusted this off and has resurrected it and wants to move the idea forward as we transition into a new year. Is that a good synopsis, Gwen?
Very good. Yes, exactly.
So she's going to give a quick PowerPoint, and then you can answer any questions that the council might have. I know you've been making the rounds to different city councils over the past year, and we're one of the last councils to have this presentation. So welcome.
Thank you. So let me just share my screen here with you all. And let's see, everyone can see that okay?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So again, my name is Gwen Ashcombe. I'm the Tobacco Prevention Coordinator with Washington County Public Health. And we are revisiting this strategy of preventing youth access to tobacco. And so I'm gonna kind of just go over quickly with you tonight, just some of the evidence-based strategies that we have already put in place, what the landscape of Washington County looks like, what the data is telling us, and then where we are now and where we're hoping to go. So we know there's certain strategies that do work, and some of the things we have been able to do. We've just established a vape tax that's new. We passed it just this November. It includes it's part of the tobacco tax, but it's the first time we've ever taxed vape. So that's new, and that went into effect January 1st. And we've also raised the purchasing age from 18 to 21. And so we know 90% of smokers start before the age of 18, 95% by the age of 21, and 99% by the age of 26. So while we raise the age and we've done this great thing of passing the tax, we still know that there's more work to be done and things that we need to do to stop youth from using these products. And these are just some of those. So we raised our purchasing age back in January of 2018. Part of what we're also doing with this process is updating our current ordinance with the county. That's ordinance 599, access to tobacco by minors. It needs to reflect this change. So we've been working on that, updating the language so that everything reflects the 21. We didn't realize that needed to be updated still. So we've been working on that. And again, the hope is that by changing the age to 21, we are having less access by youth to these products. So hopefully, 21-year-olds aren't hanging out with 14-year-olds or 15-year-olds. We know you could be 18 and be a senior in high school, go purchase legally, and then come and distribute it to the rest of your classmates. So just by delaying that age, we're hoping to delay access. And then again, we know that most smokers start by 18, pushing it back, that we'll have less smokers in the future. So that was the idea behind raising the purchasing age. This is, we participated in the spring of 2018 in the statewide tobacco and alcohol retail assessment. Washington County and our partners, we surveyed 257 retailers across the county that were known to sell tobacco. So that's gonna be your big box stores, your Fred Meyers, your grocery stores, your convenience stores, gas stations, pretty obvious places. We obviously don't know who all sells, but this is what the state gave us. So we're able to do 257 of them, and these were our findings. So across Oregon, though, teams visited nearly 2,000 grocery stores and gas stations, convenience stores, pharmacies, all of that. Any place that allows a young person to come into their establishment. So we didn't look at bars or any place like that. We didn't go into vape shops, anything. You have to be 21 to enter those. So we wanted to get a better understanding of the tobacco industry's presence in the retail environment and get a better understanding too of the tactics that they use to target Oregon residents, and particularly youth and communities of color and people living with lower incomes. So again, these were just some of the key findings from that study. In September of 2018, the FDA called e-cigarette use among our youth an epidemic that requires historic action. And this is from our 2018 student wellness survey. It always is like a little bit behind. So we have do have our 2019 data in here, but you can just see that how this problem is highlighted here in Washington County. So this is what we see here in our county, this dramatic increase in youth using these products. And you probably heard of Juul. That was one of the first ones that were really popular among youth, but now Juul is probably one in top 10, let's say, that they're using. Disposables have circled back around to become popular. One in particular is Puff Bars. You can get a disposable cartridge that looks like a Juul, and it comes with, around 200 puffs to it, and you just toss it when you're done, and it comes in different flavors. So we're seeing a rise in those types of products, but basically there's not one single product standing out like Juul did several years ago. We're now seeing it spread across the vaping industry of youth using a wide variety of products.
Do you typically see more use among, maybe you're getting to that, sorry, among the flavored products versus non-flavored? Because I feel like that's where the real problem is.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. This is what we're seeing. So who's using these flavored products like the Razzle Dazzle Berry and all those things? We know it's really our young people is what it comes down to. So this data is reflective of the Oregon Healthy Teens and also the Behavioral Risk Surveillance System data. We are seeing a dramatic drop off once you get to 24 years of age to only 18% of adults 25 and older using a flavor that we would consider non-traditional tobacco flavor. So we know that it's definitely something that's attracting our young people. This is what they're using. This is what they're going to the products for. There's over 7,000 different flavors on the market currently, and continuously more are coming in. So it's a big issue. So flavors are definitely the draw, and a lot of our youth don't realize when they're using these flavored products that they do contain nicotine. The popular one, Juul, when it was being used so much for that period of time there back in 2018, 2019, youth were thinking that there's absolutely no nicotine in this product, when in fact Juul does not make a zero nicotine cartridge. All their products have nicotine. So youth are thinking they're just getting flavored water, or I had someone tell me that it was essential oils that they're using, not understanding that this is an actual nicotine product and what it's doing. So there's a lot of misconceptions about what young people think vaping is really all about. So there's been a lot of education that we've been trying to do just to let them know exactly what they're putting in their bodies. So given that kind of background, the thing that we are proposing is to explore tobacco retail licensing for Washington County. Oregon is one of only 9 states that does not have a license. You do not have to have a license to sell a tobacco product. So this would bring it up to speed similar to what we already have with alcohol and marijuana. So you have to have a license to sell the product. And this would be for any business that sells it. So convenience stores, gas stations, bars, any place would have to have a license. Vape shops would have to have a license to sell. So we would be building on doing some education that could take many forms to our retailers. We could do online training, we could do one-on-one technical assistance. The licensing fee is needed to cover all the administration costs of the program. So basically it's a self-running program. You'd be used to educate retailers and conduct compliance checks. So, and the enforcement system part would include regular inspections with the possibility of getting fines or suspension of a license. Right now, we're exploring doing 2 enforcement checks a year. So one would just be, a tobacco prevention person just walks in, make sure they're in compliance. They don't have, product right at the counter there that's displayed appropriately. They've got their license displayed appropriately. All the things like that are in place. The second one would be what we would call a minimum legal sales age inspection. Most likely with 18 to 20-year-olds, it's just easier that way. They have usually more flexibility in their day if they're not a high school student, but to go in and try to purchase and see if they can. If they do end up being able to purchase, that's when the enforcement penalty phases would kick in for that. So kind of revisiting this again, why tobacco retail licensing? Even though it was great in 2018 that we raised the purchasing age, this would just also align those sales with alcohol and marijuana. So we raised the age to match 21 across the board, alcohol, marijuana, and such. Having a license would do the same thing across the board. So everyone would have to have a license. It just makes sense. The retailers are already used to that. We would, again, be hoping that this would reduce youth access. The main goal of this is that it's going to enforce the legal age of 21, and we're going to get less youth using and reporting that they've accessed these products in our wellness surveys that we do with our schools across the county. These are the pieces of that could be in a tobacco retail licensure. So some of these things we are exploring. The ones that we are looking at of the list is we would do what we call additional protective strategies. So you'd have to have a base license to operate. And then we would also add flavor restrictions, meaning that you can sell flavors, but only if you're a 21 and over establishment. So that would mean there's not all the crazy flavors happening in your grocery stores, convenience stores, where we know kids see it and kids can get their hands on it. They're just not going to see it there. And we're saying flavor, we're also including menthol, traditional menthol tobacco in flavors. So again, we know the tobacco industry specifically uses menthol in communities of color and highlights that particular brand and that particular product. So we are hoping to get that out of those communities. We are also looking at restricting price discounts. So hopefully no more 2-for-1 discounts and things like that that make it a lot cheaper to purchase these. Some folks have expressed interest in pursuing zoning and density. Forest Grove was interested in something like that. We are not pursuing it just because our initial feedback from speaking to the cities and mayors initially, almost a year ago, was that if that were to happen, each city would want to do that on their own. They wouldn't want the county to come in and do that. This program right now would be run by the county for cities if they choose to participate in it. But these other additional elements, there's definitely could be additional ones like zoning and density that a city chooses to do on their own, in addition to what we're proposing for the county ordinance. We also wanted to make sure that there was no giant negative fiscal impact on our business community. So to ensure that, we contracted with Portland State University's Northwest Economic Research Center, and we determined through what the economic impact would look like in Washington County. And their report, as you can see, is just right up here. So we're looking at very minimal negative impact. We would lose a potential of a 5.89 FTE, but we're hoping that since we would be hiring for this program, we could make up for some of that small job loss there. We did this with an assumption of, if we were to have a licensing fee around like $700, what would that look like? And that would break down to, $600, $700 would break down to like $1.64 to $1.92 a day for the business owner. So we were initially using those numbers because of other places that have passed it, but those numbers have since changed. These are the jurisdictions that have passed tobacco retail licensing in some form. Multnomah is the only one that's been operating they're in year 4. They're a fully operating program with enforcement, with everything else. Benton, Klamath, and Lane are operating, but they're still piecing their program together. So they're still getting cities to join them. They started with unincorporated. They're still building it out. They're still working on their enforcement, all of those things. Clatsop just recently passed there. So they are launching it now. So it's very, very new. But theirs is also a very comprehensive program similar to Multnomah. So by looking at all these counties, we've been talking to them, getting lessons learned from them, realized pretty early on that our estimate of 600 to 700 is going to be too low to run a program. That's after seeing Multnomah already has revisited their Board of Commissioners to raise the fee. It's still not high enough for them to be able to get out in the community as much as they would like. So with our looking at our budget right now that we have, assuming that we're looking at like 800, between around 850, somewhere in there. I should have brought that number right away, but that's about what we're looking at right now for a licensing fee for Washington County. What we're hoping for is to partner. We're hoping to partner with all our cities. So that's why I've been visiting with all of the cities across the county. We're trying to get a sense of how you all feel about this concept of prevention work. We also are hoping that what would happen is we would pass the ordinance for unincorporated Washington County, and then we would have intergovernmental agency agreements with each city so that we can run the program in their city. That's similar to what we already do with our animal services program. What we are thinking is that we would not launch anything until we have all the cities that want to participate join us. So it'd be a full launch at that time and not piece it together like what we're seeing in some of the other counties. That gets pretty complicated and doesn't have consistency for the retailers in the community. So if we can go at one time, that would be a lot easier. There's also the option that cities could enforce your own tobacco retail licensing program if you'd like to. We feel we could do it for you, and then we would just get in touch with you should there be a particular business that is struggling and not meeting where not doing the things that they're supposed to do, and they're getting down to having some severe enforcement issues. Then we would, of course, be in contact with you. But we're hoping it would not get that way, and we wouldn't have to get that far into it. We've already been talking to our communities about this. Our County Board of Commissioners is supportive of this work. They are encouraging us to continue with it, even though we're in COVID times. So we've been able to revisit this work. We also have advocate support. The Substance Use Prevention Collaborative for Washington County is made up of school districts, law enforcement, businesses, coalitions, lots of folks that have a vested interest in substance use prevention for youth, and they are all supportive of this work. Our Public Health Advisory Council has also given their support. We were able to conduct a community survey, a panel survey this August, which was great. We were still able to get it done. We phone interviewed about 400 Washington County residents on topics of alcohol, tobacco, marijuana, and gambling to gauge use, perceptions, attitudes around policies and things like this. And we have seen support from that survey from our community members for things around tobacco retail licensure, flavor restrictions. We're seeing a lot of support for this work. So that's been wonderful to see. I don't know if you have any specific questions for me or things that you would like more information on. This is just something that we, of course, are revisiting. This most likely will be up this legislative session again. It's been up at the state many times and it has never made it very far because tobacco industry is pretty powerful, and they come out and they've been able to prevent this from coming to fruition in Oregon. We typically, though, have had a lot of add-ons in that policy. So this is the first time that the state is going to be proposing something that's just a straight license. So we're anticipating we might be able to see this pass. What we would like is to be able to pass this ahead of the state so that we can control it, that we're grandfathered in, and then we can kind of have more say of how we want to enforce it, what the penalties should look like, all of those things. And we don't have to necessarily stick with exactly what the state program sets up to be and what they determine it's going to be for the entire state. So that's why we're moving this a little bit quicker right now.
Oh, so a question on that.
Questions.
Yeah,
Tim, just please wait a sec.
No problem.
I've got a few questions. I don't smoke, chew, any of that stuff. But in our state federal regulations, the heated tobacco products that I've seen in Europe in their dramatic increase, I don't know if that's here yet, but that's covered by all the taxes and laws, right? Just because it's heated versus some other thing.
Right. The product, you're talking, the one that's been up to the FDA for approval is through Philip Morris, and it's a heat no burn type product. I believe that because it's an actual heating of tobacco leaves, so it falls under more the tobacco realm. So it should be treated more of a tobacco product. We had issues with vape because the industry was saying it's not tobacco, but because it has nicotine, so we went about that.
So it's not being sold now, but they're trying to get it approved for sale, and it would fall under whatever the tobacco category of stuff.
Right.
Is the flavor restrictions or potential flavor restrictions, is that envisioned to be across all products, not just the vaping product, but also the smoking and chewing and heating potential iteration products?
Yes, we're looking at all flavors. So it would just leave traditional tobacco flavor on the shelves. And then if you wanted, a berry flavored chew, or you wanted those little cigarillos that are like grape flavored, the long skinny cigarettes, you have to go to a 21 and over. So it could be in the liquor store, or it could be a vape shop, which you already have to be 21 to enter anyway. So if they chose to expand their product, I doubt they will because they're a vape shop, but they could technically. So it just wouldn't be in a place that under 21-year-olds could see it. And that includes menthol, the menthol flavor and mint flavors as well.
So again, if the permitting as part of the process, it becomes allowed, because right now I could open a convenience store and sell tobacco products without a permit other than a business license, right?
Right. You can pretty much do whatever you want.
Yep. But in theory, are we proposing that we could say that even if you are 22 and addicted and you want a bubblegum flavored vape, could we say no, that we're not going to permit a bubblegum flavored vape anywhere?
That would be if we haven't proposed a full out flavor ban. That would be something that, of course, you as a city could decide if that's what you want to do. We've approached it this way because I feel it's a gentler kind of mid road on a product that is technically legal for adults. It would what we're trying to prevent is youth getting access to it. But yes, you could definitely say that if you want to prohibit that, sure. You could say that we don't allow any flavors at all in Sherwood. And that could be something that you decide.
Candy type flavor or something. Anyways, and like I said, so no permit is required now to be selling tobacco products in a store or whatever. They're just rules to follow. Other permits that a convenience store has to get today, they have to get a OLCC permit to sell alcohol.
Right.
They have to get a lottery permit if they're selling lottery.
Right.
That's with the state. If they have to get a business license from the city if they're in the city. Is there any county permits currently that a convenience store or a grocery store needs to operate right now?
Not that I'm aware of, no. This would be the first to do that for Oregon, because again, Oregon is only one of 9 states left that doesn't have something like this in place. What would happen though too is that your marijuana retailers, they would need to get a tobacco retail license as well, because a lot of the retailers in marijuana shops sell tobacco products in addition. So that'd be an extra thing they would need to purchase as well, and they would fall under separate inspections. So you'd have your marijuana inspection that would happen off that currently does through the OLCC. That would continue on its own. Tobacco would be something completely different, and they'd be inspecting it under that for the county. We wouldn't be looking at their marijuana licensing or any of that.
Cool. So from what I know today, if the state does something, or potentially does something, I could be supportive of doing something similar to what the county proposes, at least consider it, but I would keep it local. I wouldn't be interested in pursuing an IGA with the county. I don't want our businesses to have to go to Hillsborough or contact Hillsborough for something once a year out of the ordinary type of a thing. Rather just let them go to City Hall. But
that's what we're talking to cities about, is just to kind of listen to what your concerns are, what you would need to feel comfortable with something like this. If you're not comfortable at all participating, we'd want to know that as well. So this is your chance to tell me what you'd be hoping to see or not see in an ordinance.
Yep. Awesome. So Doug had his hand up.
Yeah, I was kind of touching on the state versus county aspect. So with this being rolled out already or similar legislation in 5 counties, we might be 6th. Who knows how many more might come along? What are the conversations that have been happening between the county? This feels to me like something that should be done at the state level. Similar to the way marijuana and alcohol are licensed and regulated at the state level. Having a patchwork of 36 different county systems seems not ideal. And to the mayor's point, businesses already have to deal with the state for licensing for all kinds of other reasons. And so that wouldn't be as out of the ordinary as, and then having, okay, if we, we're on the edge of the county. So, someone can drive 2 miles down the road, 3 miles down the road, and now they're in a different county with different regulations. And I don't know, I like the concept a lot. it just feels to me like this should be done at the state level.
Ideally, we would have a state license. It's like I mentioned earlier, it's something that has been proposed many, many times and never gets very far in the session before it's just kind of dissolves. That's usually been the case because they have put in those other preventive strategies in there, like flavor restrictions and things. And then once that enters into it, the tobacco industry, the vaping industry obviously doesn't want to get shut down to where they can't operate at all. So then they all come out in droves, and that pretty much kills the bill. This time around, it looks a little different. This time, they're actually proposing a straight up license. That's it. And then you would have your enforcement piece. No additional add-ons, nothing. So we have a better chance of passing it. It's hard to say. We haven't heard there's been no talk or chatter from industry yet about this being presented this legislative session. The flip side is that then we have a state-controlled system. It may not work for all of our cities across the state in the same way. We've run into this issue with the Indoor Clean Air Act. They would ask counties to enforce it as far as go out, do inspections and do that. And the fees, they would collect the fees. And so it wouldn't be going back to counties if we ended up with a surplus of money going back to the counties. But it's also sometimes the fees structure they put in place is not as effective. And so we found that some business owners tend to just write this off as part of just the cost of doing business. So this would allow more local control over a program like this and gives us that flexibility to put in the flavor restrictions or to put in, no discounts, things like that we wouldn't necessarily be able to do sometimes if anything gets restricted to us from the state. So far, they're not putting any preemption things in the bill. So it would allow us to add flavors. Like we want Washington County, let's say they pass it to the state, but we want Washington County to also restrict flavors and do these things. We'd be able to do that. Where the iffy part comes in is when it comes down to those enforcement pieces and the penalties and that sort of thing, the cost of the license, because they're going to have to run the program for the entire state. So what would the cost really look like statewide versus us here? So there's a lot of questions. So that's why we're talking to you all, is to get a sense if you'd rather, where you're landing on this issue.
Thank you. That's very helpful.
Tim's next, then Renee.
Yeah, I have some similar concerns. First of all, I agree we need to figure out the most effective strategies to keep these products out of our kids' hands and in general just promote healthy lifestyles. But you made a point about trying to get something in place before the state acts, so you're grandfathered in. That, to me, that even compounds the kind of patchwork problem that Councilor Scott brought up. I think I would be more comfortable if the state comes up with a program that the county would step back from that program, because now we have two entities trying to do the same thing. I guess my question is around that. In that situation, would they be paying a license fee to the state and to the county at that point in time? Because that's going to look a little strange as well.
No, they would only pay one licensing fee. When I say grandfathered in, I mean that we then can decide, we have more choice. So we can say, you know what, we just want you guys to enforce it. We want you to do all the administration. We want it all to go through you. We just don't want to do it anymore. Or we can say, no, we want to process the paperwork, give people do the education ourselves, make those personal connections with our business community, be more involved with education, all of that. And we're fine. We're going to continue kind of operating on our own. So it just gives us a little more room there to decide how we kind of want to participate. If we haven't passed anything, we don't get a say. It's really whatever the state decides for the fee, for the licensing fee, for the enforcement structure, all of that. So if we feel like you didn't do anything high enough or enough that's making a change, we're not seeing any change, there's not anything, we have to just abide by what the state passed. So if we have something beforehand,
right, and
we get that. Yeah, we get that little bit.
Yeah, I get that concept. What I'm wondering is if that assumes then the state law allows counties to opt out and do something on their own.
From what I understand, that's what they're doing. Yeah, because they're encouraging all counties to still continue pursuing it for that reason, to be able to keep local control. So Multnomah would still be able to operate how Multnomah wants to, and that's what they do. They don't want to. They will not participate in a statewide program. They want to keep their program the way that they have been running it. for us, I think we wanted just the option, at least, should this pass, that we can decide how we want to go with it. I think there is our Board of Commissioners probably would prefer to keep it local, that Washington County, again, has those relationships and is out in the community. It's not the state, again, out in the community, that it's us, and that we can change our program as we see fit. And as things come up, we can revise it, we can change it. We have that flexibility with it. But it is just one fee that they would pay. So they wouldn't pay anything extra to the county and to the state. It would just be one fee.
So if we decided to do it ourselves, because I do have a concern with adding another entity that a business has to go out and research and understand that they need to get a license. And not to mention, for larger businesses that have multiple locations, you have this patchwork now that they have to deal with when they're trying to figure out how to license all their stores, which having come out of that world and at the national level, that's an incredibly complex, challenging, costly issue that a lot of businesses have to deal with. So, having single points of contact and single points of licensing as much as we can, I think goes a long way to solve that problem. But I do think that, so that's just a comment, send back, but back to the state law. If the state passed that, would it allow the city to be grandfathered in as well if we went our own route on this?
Oh, if you had your own ordinance?
Yes, and we managed it ourselves.
That's a question I can take it back to the people that I know that are working on this and ask that, because I haven't heard anybody ask about individual cities. I've only heard about them addressing counties, but I can find that out and get back to you if you would like to know that.
Yeah, that'd be interesting, because then it's just a simple checkbox on their business license application. Oh, you're going to sell these products, so we'll add that to the fee, and it becomes very easy for businesses to navigate that.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. I can definitely find out and get back to you with that. I mean, for us,
that's just a thought. I'm not suggesting we're going that direction.
Yeah.
And Renee?
Thank you, by the way.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you for the good work. I've been in the prevention field for about 25 years, not as much since I've been out in Oregon, but it's a really, really important concept and for me personally. So thank you for the hard work. I am also in favor of what you're doing, and I think I would personally would like to see it more locally taken care of instead of at the state level. But I think anything right now is better than what we currently have. So keep up the good work.
Thank you. Yeah.
And so to be clear, so today Washington County can pass a license and it's enforceable.
No, we're not at the.
So what
right now, I can tell you where we are right now. Yeah.
So Multnomah has passed it if they have something in place in the event they get that authority.
Well, Multnomah County has already had it. So they're already operating with a tobacco retail license for the county. They're in year 4 and they are fully running it. Yeah.
So Washington County can pass something tomorrow on this topic in theory, and for licensing of tobacco.
If we were to pass something like that, it'd be only for unincorporated.
What?
For only unincorporated Washington County, and we'd be asking for the cities to join via intergovernmental agency agreement.
So is it your understanding or not, with the state law, does the city have the power to pass an ordinance to license tobacco and place restrictions as outlined in your presentation?
In the current climate, right at this moment, yes, you can.
Current law today. The
current law today, you could do that if you want to as your own city. You totally can do that. Yeah, so we've been hearing.
So my feedback to you, from my perspective, is I wouldn't opt in with the county. I wouldn't vote to do an IGA with the county. I would either follow a state program or have a local program, which is at the moment my first choice, so that a simple point of contact for our businesses, and we can adjust and pivot as need be. And it might be very similar to the county program, but might not.
Looks like there's a few more questions.
Yeah, Sean?
Yeah, I just have kind of, well, first of all, I wanted to say thank you for coming as well. And I'm very supportive of this. I was very happy to see the age limit be raised up. And as a former smoker, I appreciate all the efforts we can do to prevent people from smoking themselves. Question I had with regards to some of the restrictions on menthol, and you had, obviously accurately stated that these have been targeted to certain neighborhoods and certain marketing groups. Is there any concern that the inverse of that is if we put these restrictions in place that there might be concerns that this is discriminatory towards certain age groups or certain ethnic groups or races or low income? Is that something that's been addressed?
It has come up. I mean, people have used it as, like a counter argument to a lot of this work. I think we can look at it the other way is that it's not equitable the way it stands right now. They're being targeted, they're being preyed upon. We haven't done in my opinion, our due diligence in protecting those communities. And so why should they not get the same, clean environment and clean space and access to healthy foods and all those things that any other community would? We know that the tobacco industry, often what they do is they go into a community that is low income or a community of color. They will pay the convenience store owner to sell these products and to advertise as much as possible and all of that. That's why you see so much of more of it blanketing things. Other ways of dealing with some of this too, but this would be on an individual city by city case would be to update a sign ordinance where then you can restrict your advertising and it's not singling out a particular product, but you're saying, hey, only 10% of your store can be covered in ads across the board. That's only one, that'd be one strategy to stop that from happening. But as it stands now, no, there's no advertising restriction like that. So you see more of those communities not look as nice, not have, kids have to walk by it more often. So we're sort of trying to even out the playing field here by giving them what we don't see in richer white communities.
Absolutely. And to be clear, I'm very supportive of the idea of doing that. So I want to just a little bit of devil's advocate and a little bit of just kind of looking forward. You obviously had mentioned the tobacco companies being one of the hurdles and the people that push back on this. Are there any other groups that have been difficult in the past? And is there maybe thing that we could look ahead to be proactive in making sure that we don't have issues if we were to move forward?
Right. So far now, I haven't heard anything negative about our proposal because we are restricting it to 21 and over. We're not straight out prohibiting flavors. That has received some backlash, especially in Multnomah, about just, because you're basically saying you're a vape shop owner, now you have no business. I mean, that's someone's livelihood, and that's not something we want to do. We don't want to take away someone's business. We just want to make sure kids are safe and not getting their hands on this. We're also partnering with Human Impact Partners. They're based out of California near Berkeley, and they do a lot of equity work. That's what they do. And so we're going to be contracting with them to look over the tobacco retail rollout plan, our documents, how we are engaging the community. Our plan is to visit every store individually, if we can, or have that one-on-one connection somehow to let them know this is coming, give them that education. They'd be online forms they could do. We'd want to simplify it as much as possible and as multiple languages as we can. So we're really thinking about those equity pieces and that this reflects those good intentions that we hope the community is seeing by this work. So that's part of that partnership happening, which is why we are proposing it. The county run this for folks so that you all don't have that extra piece of having to translate things and get things done, and that we can streamline it like we do with your animal services program and things like that, that we could help you with that. I mean, that's the consistency basically across the county is what we were looking at. And that's why we were proposing it.
I appreciate that.
Doug, you had another comment?
Yeah, just real quick. My only comment about the IGA aspect would be even if we want to maybe run the licensing ourselves, and we may want to do an IGA for enforcement. I don't imagine we want to employ inspectors and whatnot, or could reasonably do that. So
yeah, that's where the fee went up, was when we started factoring in. I'm estimating we inspected 257 locations. We know there's more out there. I added another 100 or so to make it like an even 350, 360 to do those inspections twice a year. You're looking at over 1,000 inspections. that have to happen continuously all year, and as new people come into the county and leave the county and all of that. So it's a pretty big endeavor when you actually start looking at it all. We are hoping to use the same software system that our environmental health folks already use and just have a separate piece that's for tobacco retail licensing. So all these things is where the cost kind of started adding up to just administer the program itself. We're really hoping people will comply and we won't have to do multiple inspections, because once you have somebody on a penalty, you're going to have to go back again and then again until you get, that they're cleared. So that's where Multnomah found out that one violation ended up being like 3 inspections, because they had to go back out and then out again and just to verify. And so it's a lot more than and that's the lessons we've learned by watching other counties go ahead of us. We're taking all that in. We're kind of like, okay, what should we expect? Okay, you find a violation, tack on a couple more visits, all those kinds of things that we didn't really take into account when we first started going down this road. And that's why we're wondering, is the state going to be able to comply with that? Are they saying 2 inspections a year? Are they just going to randomly? I know right now there's some issues some people have with OLCC on these random inspections, and they're not as consistently done every year on a schedule. Like some get inspected and then some kind of go a lot longer before their next inspection. There's not like as consistency. So we're hoping we'd have consistency with our inspections.
Great. Tim, did you have another question?
Yeah, I do. And I, by the way, I want to thank you and everyone who's focused on this issue, because it is important. I mean, for me personally, I started smoking at 18, and it was because when I joined the Air Force, when I finished eating, I could either go outside and stand at attention in the sun, or I could go to the smoking area and have a cigarette. So guess what? Everyone started smoking. So getting, especially with our youth, changing that dynamic and making sure that these things aren't available to them is really, really important. But I do, something struck me too, if you think about state level legislation around this, we already have organizations at state level, like the Department of Weights and Measures. They visit every gas station, every store that has a scale in it, and food inspections every year. I have a friend who's one of those inspectors. It feels like to me, instead of creating a whole new organization that's going out there and doing inspections, can we level leverage the organizations that we already have doing those inspections and get really efficient about this? Just throwing that out there, because we are building another, I'm going to say, bureaucracy, to deal with that, and that costs money, and it costs money to maintain. I just want to make sure we're being really smart about how we approach it. That being said, I do prefer local control, but I just think we really need to think about how we do it.
Yeah, and that's the question that those of us in the county have of like the state too, right? Like who are they going to partner with? Do they want us to do it? Or are they looking at another agency that's already doing this? Like how do they foresee all this happening? And a lot of that won't come out until rulemaking, right? So we're waiting to see what they propose. And then if it does pass, that will shift a lot of things. And then a lot of the counties that have already passed, I haven't heard of anyone yet that have passed it saying they're going to opt into a state run program, because the ones that have passed it have really wanted the local control. So it's just, we're just gonna have to see how this legislative session plays out. They don't expect us to really know anything. This is not as high on the list as some other issues. So they're expecting we would know later in the session, closer to the end. So that's what started this work speeding up a little bit, and me reaching out to you, because we then have to decide how soon are we gonna go in front of our Board of Commissioners with an ordinance. And if you all have further conversations and need more information, that's another piece of the puzzle, is that I would be coming back to you with our ordinance that we would propose so that you could see it. I've had a request from other cities like North Plains to look at the actual budget. I want to see where everything's going. We can definitely share that. Others wanting to know more about the enforcement piece, like what the penalty phases actually look like. So as those are more fine-tuned and shareable, I can come back and do that if that's helpful again in furthering your conversation. So that's where I'm just kind of wanting to get a sense if that would be helpful to come back, if it would be, you need that additional info.
I think just as you get draft ordinance and stuff together, send it to our staff, and they can share it with us, and we can review and use it as guidance and see if there's a direction council wants to take. Again, I, at the moment, from what I know, don't want to do an IGA with the county. If maybe we do something similar, but we are a tiny town with a very short list of retailers. And I think it would be better for them to either be part of a state plan or do it ourselves.
And
maybe 20.
and I
Maybe 20 retailers in town.
Yeah, it's a small number. Can I just add one quick thing?
No vape seller of the vape only.
Yeah, for anyone listening out, I apologize, Keith. I just want to add one quick thing. For anyone listening out there, I said I started smoking. I also quit smoking 20 years ago, cold turkey, right as the millennium was about to pass. So just a message to everybody out there, you can do it.
Agreed. Smoked for 13 years, quit smoking about 15 years ago. So.
Yeah.
Thank you again, Gwen.
Yeah.
We are running a little late, but that's okay. I appreciate you spending time and sharing that with us today very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So with that, I think we're adjourned for the work session. And 5 minutes, we'll start our city council.